Welcome to Face to Face, and today we're going to talk about nuclear. We're going to talk about the Iran deal between the US, who is planning to rejoin the talk about the troops in Afghanistan. I'm with Braham Azad, and welcome to Face to Face.
Thank you, David. Thank you for inviting me.
So tell me a little bit. How do you see the deal? The rediscussion of the nuclear deal between the US, Europe, and Iran. I mean, are we going to go back to what was before, or you think something's going to have to change, and the US might going to be more complicated than for the US to reach a new agreement?
Okay. Well, it's not that simple. Of course, everybody knows that. First, I should mention that the deal that was made and signed in many ways was not implemented by the US side. A lot of assets were not unfrozen or released. A lot of promises were not delivered on the part of the United States Obama administration. Iran was already unhappy with it, even before Trump pulled out of the nuclear deal. At the same time, if you look at why Trump pulled out, of course, Obama, towards the end of his presidency, also renewed some of those sanctions and signed a kind of a emergency status for Iran for the following 10 years. So he was retreating anyway. Even from a partially not implemented deal. And it seems that the ruling circles in the United States were unhappy with that deal, especially under pressure from Israel and Saudi Arabia, two of the main allies of the United States in the Middle East. So Trump pulled out. But the reasons they gave was interesting because Pompeo gave a 12-point demand for going back to nuclear deal, which went far beyond the nuclear issue, and put in requests for missile projects of Iran, its presence in Syria, its help to Hezbollah and Palestinians, and it was a total call for a total withdrawal of Iran from any kind of resistance.
Yeah, it was geopolitical more than
right, and even globally. They said they should not support some. Probably they meant Venezuela and others. So that was the demand, and of course it's a no-go request for Iran. They would not agree to that because we know what Gaddafi did and what happened to him when he agreed to the deal with the West.
Mm-hmm.
So. Of course, it was an existential issue, and it is an existential issue for them, and they will not go that far back. So far as the U.S. is going to push for those things, it's not going to happen, in my view. Secondly, we have to recognize that President Biden has said he's going back, but he has also simultaneously said that the framework should be expanded. And that expansion, I suspect, is the exact same things that the whole ruling class in the United States wants from Iran. And the issue is to stop Iran from resisting and helping those who resist in the region. And this, I'm sure, is not going to be acceptable again if it goes that far. Europeans, of course, want to make a deal. They want to have a kind of a deal going on so that things settle down. But they are under pressure from the US also. They have a limited capability to go on their own the same way as they planned to do on the first nuclear deal.
On the first time, yeah.
And it didn't work, because euro is not a common kind of currency in those deals. And very limited euro deals could be made directly with Iran. And there was always threat, US Damocles sword above everybody's head that if you deal with the Iranians, you're not going to be able to deal with the US. So there are a lot of forces, companies, nations were afraid to even deal, even under the European agreement. So that's how the whole thing stalled. Now, whether it's going to work or not, I'm not so sure. I'm not optimistic personally. I don't think that they will come to an agreement. Especially Israelis and Saudis don't want to see that happen.
So,
that's the situation now.
So what is concerning the sanction? How they're going to deal? I mean, how they're going to deal with the sanction? Because right now Iran is under very, very tight sanction at the international level, and we saw it with the COVID pandemic. It was very complicated situation for Iran to get even basic health and medicine and equipment for them. So it became a humanitarian issue.
Well, this violation has been going on happening to 39 countries at least in the world that U.S. has put under sanctions, and they're doing the same thing to Cubans. They're doing the same thing to Venezuelans, Syrians, everybody. My feeling is that U.S. is really afraid of losing its grip over the global situation. With the rise of China, U.S. is fearing that it's not going to be the sole superpower anymore. And given the fact that these resisting countries, more or less, are getting under, of course, in response to U.S. pressures, are getting closer to China and Russia, trying to get help from that side, ally themselves there. I mean, if you look at the Middle East situation, there is a kind of a front of resistance consisting of Hezbollah in Lebanon, Syrian government, Iranian government, Russia, and to some degree China. And Iran is now making big deals, a 25-year deal with China. So US is also afraid that if these countries' resistance remains and stays on, then these countries may become allies of the competitor in the world.
Well, that's what it's happening now. That's a process where they are in too. So how does the US, they cannot play the two games at the same time. I mean, they need to decide what are they going to play with.
Of course, but they cannot, fight the objective reality. US does not have the economic power, and US military power depends on its economic power.
Yeah.
And when your economy is not capable of, supporting military operations around the world all the time,
so
you end up doing what?
So in some way, Biden doesn't have any choice.
Sanctions become the favorite weapon of bringing these countries down.
Yeah. So Biden doesn't have any choice. He needs to find a way to make a deal with Iran. He has no choice.
There may be some deals made, but not significant.
Not significant.
Nothing, in my view, unless Iran really fully backs off, which I doubt they would.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So now we wanted to see with you, how do you see this news about the troop remove the US troop from Afghanistan by September 11? I mean, that was already proposed by Trump before, so I don't think it's anything new. But what is the consequences of that? Does it a good things to happen, or how do you see it?
Well, it's always good to happen to remove any foreign troops from any country.
I agree.
We welcome that. No question about it.
Okay.
And I think it's partly a result of the struggles of the peace forces inside the United States and people who want justice and want the military expenses reduced and the money be transferred to all those humanitarian needs that all the people are facing, as COVID, healthcare, education, infrastructure, everything else. And spending money or maintaining bases in 800 countries and presence of troops all over the world is draining U.S. economy and keeping the government from really delivering on the other sides of its responsibilities.
Yeah.
So, and there have been objections and protests and everything else, and it seems that at least Biden administration is hearing that, which is good. But at the same time, if you look at it, they're not pulling out. They say about 7,000 troops will stay there.
7,000 troops. Wow.
Yes, but it's not going to be all U.S. What is happening is there's going to be more European and NATO forces moving in, replacing U.S. forces.
Oh, I see.
And many other forces, also much of the U.S. forces are going to be kind of replaced by mercenary private forces, the same way they were doing it in Iraq during the Bush administration. And Obama, when Obama pulled out, about 90,000 private sector military and security companies were operating.
Yeah.
The number of private operators in the military were almost equal to the number of troops, official troops of
because they are not belonging to the same legislation at the international level, so they can do a little bit more damage.
Of course, they are not answerable to anybody. Nobody, exactly. I mean, legally is supposed to respond or report to the Congress about anything.
Yeah.
So when you do it, besides, the question of Afghanistan is not settled. We know that, right? It's not going to happen by just withdrawing. U.S. is going to have this worry constantly. And the same way as Obama was forced to send in reinforcement again after pulling out. I wouldn't be surprised if U.S. pulls out in September and goes back in December. Because the situation in Afghanistan is not settled. Government of Afghanistan is not in charge.
Yeah.
You know, we used to call it the government in Kabul. That was it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's not settled. And this, I don't think this is a final phase of operations or something continuously reducing U.S. troops. My feeling is that the crisis is going to erupt again, and there's going to be probably sending some troops back. That's my feeling.
Okay, thank you. So to close, because we are running out of time, do you have anything people should know about, or any important information concerning the peace process, if we can say in a word? How do you see the Biden administration going after in a new direction, or not really?
No, I think the State Department is even more warmonger than under Blinken than was before, and we should expect more and more interferences. You saw their confrontation with the Chinese in Alaska, Anchorage, the threats with Russians and kicking out the diplomats and all those things. I mean, things are being intensified. It's not globally, in fact, are intensifying the confrontational approach. Domestically, there may be some changes, but I don't think internationally there's going to be much change.
Very briefly, how do you see the conflict with Russia? Why are they going after Russia that strong? I mean, it seems to be increasing every day.
Well, of course, Russia on its own probably it has been a thorn on the side of the United States since Putin took power. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But at the same time, you see that countries like Iran and others are getting closer to Russia. And also China and Russia are getting to a more long-term agreements. So kind of a front is being formed. There's going to be a rearrangement of international forces, not in the exact same format as the Cold War we had, but there's going to be kind of a different lineup.
Yeah. I'm wondering if Russia is not...
China and Russia will be on the same side on this time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the Russians are into the front for China. Like I saw it in Venezuela, they go first, they send the military or they send the boat and so on and so forth. Like China will not going to fight. They're going to ask Russia to go in front, and then China will support behind, because they don't want to be...
I'm not so sure if it's a plan or is because of the circumstances.
Okay.
Because China's economy is very much intermingled with the U.S. economy.
Yeah.
And China cannot go as far as Russia, that has a kind of a freedom in that sense.
Yeah.
Can go.
Yeah.
So you are right. China will be more careful, and Russia will be more active on this front.
Yeah, yeah.
but it's going to be along the same lines together, it seems.
Yeah, that's very clear. All right, I think we are at the end of our interview. Anything else you want to plug?
Yes, I think the U.S. Peace Council is pushing for, and I think it's not just the U.S. Peace Council, Code Pink and other forces are. We think that we have to put an end to this militarism and waste of resources on military budget. And we have created and formed together with a lot of other forces a coalition, a campaign called Move the Money to Human Needs campaign, which is supporting Barbara Lee and Representative what's his name? Forgot me. But the caucus that has been formed in
Washington,
in the House, for reducing the military budget, we are supporting them. At the same time, we think we should mobilize locally at the level of city councils to pass resolutions demanding from their representatives in Congress to help with joining that caucus and helping reduce the military budget. As you know, the new Biden budget is a little bit even over what Trump's is. So
yeah. And even at the city council level, I mean, to pass the legislation to defund to move the money to a non-weapon or non-nuclear, it's still pending, and I don't know. I mean, I'm going to get Brian Frey into the discussion, but it seems to be slow motion to get the money moving. So
yes, but one thing that happened during Trump, and I don't know, I haven't looked at the Biden budget, but the Trump military budget increased the budget discretionary part of it for war and operations abroad, and reduced the maintenance funds for the Pentagon itself.
Oh, I see.
So the composition of military budget under Trump shifted towards more war.
Yeah.
I don't know if Biden budget is reversing that or is still going along the same lines, but it is a dangerous thing that we are facing. So it's a qualitative shift within a quantitative increase that we're talking about.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for being here. It was a real pleasure. I'm sure we will talk again. And be well. Thank you so much.
We'll be happy to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was your show Face to Face, and please keep watching your news on Presenza.com and subscribe and send this information to your friend and family. Thank you very much.